Okay, we're going to go ahead and fill out the science study guide for today. As I mentioned in, I think, one of my previous videos, I like to give the study guide out a week early. That way you have a whole week or more to begin studying. So I'm also going to try and record this video kind of horizontally. That way it's not quite so zoomed out. It should be a little bit closer for you. So I sent this file out earlier. You should be able to print that off and be able to fill it out with me together. You are gonna have to have a physical copy of this. Otherwise, this whole video is not gonna make sense and you're not gonna have anything to study from. So I pulled out a few of the vocabulary words from our notes thus far. I went ahead and wrote those down. Otherwise, this video would be just a lot of me writing. If you need to go ahead and pause this, you can fill those out as we go, but real briefly, I'm gonna go over them. We said that a shadow is the dark area cast by an object. Make sure you know that that is opaque objects. Okay. Rotation is when an object turns or spins around. You also need to know that the Earth rotates once every 24 hours, which is what causes day and night. The flip side of that is revolution. This is where one object to go around something else. So, for example, the Earth revolves around the sun. Earth does this around the sun every 365 1/4 days, which is what causes the seasons. Okay, so rotation causes day and night. Revolution is what causes the seasons, winter, spring, summer, and fall. The North Star we mentioned in talking about, I can't remember the patterns of shadows and seasons and things like that. This star, we also call Polaris. Polaris is a Latin name for the North Star, is directly over the North Pole, always. Air pressure is known as the force of air pushing in all directions, right? So when we squeeze air into one little tiny space, it begins to push back in all directions, which is increasing the air pressure. Precipitation basically is any form of water falling from the atmosphere to the Earth's surface. So we went ahead and defined all 4 types of water that we could have coming down: rain, snow, sleet, or hail falling from the atmosphere to the Earth's surface. And then water cycle, which is the continuous movement of water between Earth's surface and the atmosphere. Okay, it's just this continuous pattern that goes on all the time. Now we're going to move forward into the next couple of questions having to do with the atmosphere. So first, we want to define what is the atmosphere. According to our notes, we said the atmosphere is the mixture of gases surrounding the Earth We also called this a physical characteristic of Earth, which basically just means that is something we can use to describe that particular planet. We couldn't use it, we couldn't talk about, we couldn't describe the moon as having an atmosphere because it doesn't have one, but it is a physical characteristic of the Earth and quite an important one at that. Okay, next we're going to go ahead and talk about the different layers of the atmosphere. We want to know what happens in each layer and the order in which they go. So it's kind of easy. I gave them to you in order. So this is going to be the first layer. I'm going to put a number 1 off to the side there. The stratosphere is the second layer. The mesosphere is the third. The thermosphere is the fourth. And the exosphere is the fifth. Okay. So in the troposphere, this is where weather happens. This is also where planes fly. And people live here. Okay, just make sure you're writing very neatly because I know it gets a little squished there. Let's see if I can move this just a tad. Okay. Then we have the stratosphere. The stratosphere is where we send weather balloons. Okay, so the actual weather happens in the troposphere, such as storms, winds, clouds, things like that. But we send the weather balloons up one layer more just to send that data back down to us. So weather balloons fly here, and it also contains, meaning it has the jet stream and the ozone layer. Okay, then we have the mesosphere. This is where meteors burn up, which we now know is what we call shooting stars. Next, we have the thermosphere. This is the biggest and the hottest. Remember, that's where that root word therm comes from, like a thermometer. So it's the biggest and the hottest layer. And this is where we see the northern lights, which, if you remember from the diagram as well as the notes, we also call these the aurora borealis. Hopefully you can see that there. Okay, then we have the exosphere. Okay, this is where satellites, move this back over, I'll put it back. This is where satellites orbit the Earth. If they go any further than that, they're no longer considered in the Earth's atmosphere. This is actually where they would exit to space. Okay, so of those gases that make up the atmosphere, air is mostly made up of two of them, which is 78% nitrogen and 21% oxygen. Okay. Then it says to list 3 properties of air, okay? Basically just means what are 3 characteristics of air that we know are true. First, we know that air is matter, meaning it has mass and takes up space. Even though it may look invisible, like nothing, quote unquote, is there, it still has a certain mass and takes up a certain amount of space. Because of that, it can be compressed, meaning it can be squeezed together into a smaller area. And when you do that, it increases in pressure. Okay, so that's 3 ways we can describe air. It is matter, which means it can be compressed. And when we do that, it then increases the pressure. If you need to pause this here, you can. Otherwise, we're gonna flip and go on to the next side.